everyone. This is Jeff Dennis. Welcome to day 4 of the preliminary round of TiEQuest 2020. I'm Jeff Dennis. I'm the chair of TiEQuest 2020. I'm also the entrepreneur in residence at Fasken Law. We're really excited to be offering this competition online through Zoom to provide as much exposure to these companies as possible. I'd like to make a special recognition of the Royal Bank. They've been our presenting sponsor and our major sponsor for many, many years. I think it's been like 11 years or something like that. But they were particularly helpful during this COVID crisis as we had to try and reboot our business like everybody else has had to do, and the Royal stood by us and helped us through that. We're also very grateful to BDO, the firm I'm associated with, Fasken, the City of Toronto, Air Canada, Baylis Medical, the Biz Planner, and First Angel Capital. So you're probably asking yourselves, what is TI? So TI is a global network of entrepreneurs, professionals, and others formed to help entrepreneurs. There's 61 chapters in 18 countries, and there's literally tens of thousands of members around the world. We've helped thousands and tens of thousands of startups. In Toronto, we have a very active chapter whose mission is to foster entrepreneurship, to encourage and nurture the next generation of entrepreneurs. And we do that through education, mentoring, networking, funding. You know, we give back. Our major project every year is the TiEQuest competition. It's a multi-stage business venture competition for early stage companies. We typically get about 100 companies every year, and we whittle it down to a winner. Last year's winner was Genesis, who shortly after winning TiEQuest raised $4.5 million, entered into an important partnership, and commissioned their demonstration plant. Every year we get great companies, and we're looking forward to adding a logo to this board. So here's where we stand. We started back in December when we opened up applications. We received about 100, and we closed them off in the end of January and did a round of online judging. And the judges took it from the 100 down to 50. And in February, we had a mentoring workshop for startups where we helped them with their pitches and with their businesses. And then in Saturday, March 7th, we had a live pitch competition where the 50 companies all pitched. It was live. It was at our office at Fasken. And we whittled it down to the 25 that started at the beginning of this week. So this week and Monday next week, we're having 5 evenings, 5 companies per evening, 5 or 6 judges, with an objective to have 1 company emerge from each evening as the winner. We now have 3 that we know about. Our winner from last night was LSK Life Science, a medical testing, lab testing company. And the night before it was Steadyware. And on Monday it was Tenant Cube. So we're gonna have another winner tonight, and then next Monday, and the 5 winners will all compete on Monday, June 29th in the finals, which will start at 7 o'clock, which will also be broadcast live on Zoom and will be for free. So please join us and please register. So here's how this evening's gonna go. We've got 5 companies. Our judges will hear them out. There'll be 10-minute presentations, followed by 10 minutes of Q&A, and then a 5-minute debrief so that the judges can fill out their scorecards. And then the next company will come and we'll repeat the process until we get through all 5. The criteria we use for scoring is fairly self-explanatory and expected, I suppose. You know, is there a value proposition? What's the size of the market? Is this feasible? What traction has been achieved? What's the strength of the management team? You know, do they have a competitive advantage? And would you invest? no commitment, okay? It's not like Dragon's Den where you have to write it. Don't worry. Again, the finals are on the 29th at 7 p.m. Tickets are complimentary. You can register by clicking on this link. And I want to introduce our judges. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Our judges tonight are Will Shaw, co-lead of Faskin's Emerging Companies Practice, who works with me, of course. Amit Rastogi with Active Health. Hamid Daneshbodi with RBC. Armand Delivriera with Critical Vision. Akash Mainra with SOTI. And Scott Stoneberg with Cushman Wakefield. So you can see we have some very experienced people to judge a variety of expertise. And if tonight's anything like the last few nights, we're going to see some great companies. So Melanie, I think we're ready for the first victim. Oh, you're here.
Amir from NERV is on.
Okay, so Amr, I didn't see you sneak in like that. Sorry. So welcome.
Thank you.
So here's what we're going to do. Share your screen. And when you're ready and get started, we'll give you 10 minutes. Do your pitch. And then I'll interrupt you. And we'll do 10 minutes of Q&A. And we'll start timing when you get started. So good luck. And we look forward to hearing your pitch. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Can everyone hear me okay? Just to confirm.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here this evening. Good evening, all. My name is Amr Abdul Jawad. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and one of the co-founders of NERV, and we are on a mission to make surgery safer. I'm pretty sure you or your family member or someone dear to you has been in a similar position to this before. You're sitting next to a loved one after a surgical procedure and you're concerned about them and their recovery. You're not sure if they're recovering well or if they're suffering from a complication that we're all completely blind to. And this today is actually the way the standard of care looks like. After a surgery happens and if a complication develops, we usually have to wait for symptoms to present themselves before we can begin examination and then diagnosis and finally treatment. Unfortunately, this 2 to 3 day window between when the complication actually arises and when treatment can begin can sometimes mean the difference between life and death for some patients. And for those that end up surviving the complication, their quality of life goes down and costs can start to spiral out of control. So in short, it's a delayed and reactive way to handling post-operative care. Now, the surgeries that happen are obviously numerous and the complications that can arise can vary. However, we decided to hone down particularly on general surgeries due to the sheer number of procedures that are performed every year. And one particular complication known as anastomotic leaks, which has been the bane of intestinal surgeries for decades. Typically, in a lot of these procedures, what would happen is that a surgeon would remove portions of the GI tract in order to remove a tumor or treat a disease, and then they would reconnect it with staples and sutures. Unfortunately, however, for various reasons, including changes in tension along the GI tract or even lack of blood supply across the surgical site, that staple line can sometimes get compromised and content from within the GI tract would leak into the abdominal cavity. Now, the problem happens actually more often than what people would imagine. Its incidence rate in literature has been reported to be around 8%, and mortality rate can be north of 10% when the leak happens. On average as well, we do see an increase in cost of about $50,000 per leak incident. So at NERV, what we did is that we took an existing tool that is being utilized today as part of the standard of care, which is the wound drain and the reservoir that you see in front of you, and augmented that with a set of inline sensors that can analyze the nature of the fluid that is in the abdominal cavity in real time in order to identify if a leak is happening. The information then gets put into a remote dashboard where you can see in a continuous fashion how the patient is going to recover post-operatively. Now, there are a few key attributes that we like to highlight over here, and one of the most important ones is that this is a plug-and-play solution. As a matter of fact, when we tested this device in our first clinical study, the surgeon took less than 20 seconds to integrate the device into the catheter, and he turned around and asked us, is that all I need to do? And we simply told him, yes, from here we take it and we can monitor the patient and let you know if something happens. Eventually, that surgeon actually invested in our current seed round. And I think this speaks volumes to what we're doing in terms of the value of the information that we're providing, as well as in the simplicity of the device itself. It's also considered to be a bedside integration tool, so the patient doesn't have to move around in order to do any routine investigations. And it's the first ever tool that allows for continuous analysis in terms of monitoring for leaks. Finally, it incorporates telemonitoring capabilities, which post-COVID, we can definitely see a huge advantage for in the next few years. Now, in terms of getting a better understanding of how this device works, the drain itself gets placed near the surgical site in the abdominal cavity. And by simply squeezing the reservoir, the negative pressure forces the fluid to come to the outside, which goes across the sensors for analysis, gets uploaded to the cloud, and then presented live in front of the post-op care team for analysis. Now, you might be wondering, if this is such a big problem, why hasn't it been solved before? And we'd be lying to ourselves if we say that we're the only ones trying to tackle this problem. Matter of the fact is that a number of companies have been looking at it, but from different angles. And I'd like to break that down for you. The first approach is the classical or surgical approach towards trying to improve stapler guns that are utilized as part of surgery in order to prevent misfiring from the gun itself. And leaders in the space, such as Medtronic and Ethicon, have been continuously competing on that end. However, no matter how good of a stapler gun you have, clinical factors that are beyond what a stapler gun can do can actually result in a leak eventually. And at this point, this tool offers no diagnostic value. Now, if we move into the second bucket, which is the imaging space, where there has been a lot of advancements when it comes to specifically fluorescence imaging in particular has been tested in clinical studies for its ability to detect blood supply to the surgical site. However, there's been a lot of obstacles and hurdles towards adopting such a technology for a number of reasons. The first being that it's a big and clunky tool, takes up space in the operating room. Surgeons require to dim the light in order to be able to utilize this device, which is something that they don't appreciate. And it's fairly expensive. And on top of that, it's only utilized intraoperatively, so just during the surgery itself. Post-operatively, no one is out there playing in that space, which puts us in this unique position to be the first and only company out there that is capable of post-operatively, in a continuous fashion and in a cost-effective manner, monitor patients for the presence of a leak. Now, the market opportunity is immense. There are north of 70 million surgeries performed annually in the general surgical space. We're particularly focused on the US market to begin with, and on a beachhead market of 1.7 million surgeries that we believe would have the most impact on. To date, we've developed our core sensing technology, which has been tested in animal models, where we were able to detect leaks in less than 3 minutes, which represents a major leap compared to the current standard of care. We also started our clinical studies. Unfortunately, COVID hit shortly afterwards, which put a little bit of a dent in our plans. But we're still chugging along. We're working towards other milestones, including preparing for an FDA pre-submission meeting in order to get our classifications in both the US as well as in Health Canada by the end of this year, early next year, so that we're ready for a hospital pilot towards the mid to end of 2021. To date, we've raised just under $2 million in funding, most recently closing a pre-seed round of $750K, led primarily by physicians. And right now we're in the final stages of closing a $2.5 million seed round that is going to cover the cost of our clinical studies and regulatory submissions. And we're actually closing the round in a couple of days, and we do have commitments for the entire round. Now, moving forward, the device itself is going to be sold for $600 a unit, and we anticipate to be working with research institutions as well as tertiary centers that do a high volume of these procedures, anywhere between 10 to 15,000 general surgeries every year. And given the patient population that we're targeting, we've accounted for 1,500 surgeries per hospital per year, allowing us to generate a gross revenue of just under $1 million per hospital per year. And we already have institutions, some of them are really well known worldwide, including Cleveland Clinic and a few institutions here in Canada, that are going to be part of our clinical studies and early adopters. We all understand, though, how medical devices work, and for a new technology to get adopted, we need to have the physician buy-in. We need to have them as a champion for this device. And we've seen legislation in the United States recently move towards generating codes for physicians to use remote patient monitoring capabilities or devices. And that's something that we plan to also utilize moving forward to incentivize surgeons to use our device. This is my second family and the A-Star team that is working on Nerve to date. We have individuals with experiences ranging from product to business development, including two of us as founders running our second startup. We also have individuals with research publications under their belt in the field of biosensors as well as electrochemistry, and a quality and regulatory expert who came straight from Health Canada to join NERV. We do understand that we're a young yet ambitious team, and that's why we've partnered up with individuals who have experience in the space on the medical, product development, regulatory, and commercialization fronts. To date, I'm proud to say that we have a few layers of unfair advantage for NERV, including our IP protection, our proprietary manufacturing method, which allows us to batch manufacture our sensors, and the data that we continuously collect, which is not available on the market right now. And I'm proud to say that we have letters of intent from institutions. These are institutions that are going to be a growing number of pilot sites moving forward. And we've generated north of $1 million in awards and government funding to support our development. We also have partners on board, such as J&J, who want to see this technology come to life. Most recently, I'm proud to announce that we came first at the first ever Entrepreneurship World Cup, coming ahead of more than 100,000 companies from 100 different countries around the world and gaining the recognition of some notorious investors such as Kevin O'Leary. And we wrapped up 2019 winning the J-Labs at Texas Medical Center Breakthrough Medical Technologies Award. Now, before I wrap up, I'd like to bring back the vision of what NERV is, which is us going to be pioneers in the post-operative care space. And to do that, we have plans to continue working on sensors to allow us to enter into other verticals. And the data that we continuously collect will add a tremendous value to physicians, patients, and institutions. The remote patient monitoring capabilities can allow us to enter into other verticals. And finally, the use of a platform technology in drains in other surgeries can allow us to enter into other markets as well. I'm Amr Abdul Jawad, and we are NERV, and will not stop until post-operative complications are a problem of the past. Thank you so much.
Wow, what a great presentation. Thank you. That was awesome. And congratulations on those awards. That's very impressive.
Thank you so much.
So judges, who wants to kick off our questions?
Oh, I can go.
Sure.
Fantastic, Amir. And the recognition, and not to mention the $2.5 million seed round, no small accomplishment. Congratulations again.
Appreciate it.
So it looks like a promising space, a very promising space. The unit economics are very favorable. The market's large. Tell me what happens if there is a defect in the device? Like, how do you get to know that something is wrong? It's actually showing up the wrong data. Does that open you to liabilities? Because you mentioned 12% mortality rate. I don't know that's with or without the device, but the notion of false alarms. So with every hardware comes kind of additional complication in servicing, disposition, installation, defects, battery, whatnot. So how do you plan to deal with that at scale when you have 1,500 hospitals and worldwide presence?
Yep, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And we actually took a few steps towards mitigating that risk. First of all, our device that we're entering the market with, our first gen device, is going to be a monitoring tool, not a diagnostic tool. So at this point, we remove the liability on us as a company to tell physicians for a fact whether the patient is leaking or not. First, we don't have enough data yet in order to be able to demonstrate that the information that we have gathered so far, and might still continue to gather in the next few months, is an indicator of a leak. And that's why we're removing the liability on us at this stage by simply going in with a monitoring tool. Now, at the end of the day, we're providing early warning signs. So we're not going to be coming in at a late stage where the patient is deteriorating and they need to intervene to save the patient or not. We'll still be looking at patients' symptoms. They can still follow routine investigations to try to identify what is also happening, but we're coming in just a little earlier, saving them those 1 or 2 extra days where the patient might deteriorate and costs might start to rise.
Next question.
Sorry, just to follow on quickly, and radiology cannot determine the leak. So you physically need a device. No amount of MRI or CT can actually determine the internal bleeding or leakage of the specific fluid.
CT scans are actually used today as part of the routine care in order to identify if a leak is happening. However, they're only done usually after a physician is suspecting that a patient is leaking. But literature is also suggesting that they fail roughly in 30% of the cases to identify those leaks. And once again, at this point, it's a reactive measure, not a proactive measure towards detection.
Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is the device single use or it's reusable?
That's a great question. We usually get that. Yes, it is a single-use device. We are exploring potential models for certain components of the device to be reused. However, for the time being and for the sake of simplicity when dealing with hospitals and to avoid logistical headaches, it is going to be a single-use device.
Could you tell a bit more about your IP on this right now? We talked about, I think I kind of like missed it from a competitive advantage perspective. So you guys seem to have a good like head start. There's a whole bunch of big players out there. So is it really IP which is going to like protect you, or like do you believe that it's not something to which they can just like like bring it out tomorrow?
Yeah, that's also a fantastic point. We do have actually IP already. We're a patent pending company. The technology has been filed for back in 2015 through a number of provisionals. Right now we have a US patent pending on the application of the device to be used in terms of detecting leaks. We also have a new PCT that was more recently submitted around the form factor of the device. So these are the two patents that we have in place so far.
Okay, so it sounds like a something which is totally nobody else in the market. So why you limit yourself to $600 per month?
I'm sorry. I think your question was, why did we price it at 600?
Yeah, why not more? Why just 600? Because there is no competitor out there. So
yeah,
and it's such a strong need.
Yeah, we did a full actually pricing analysis on the device, and for you to start thinking about the patients that do leak and the patients that don't leak, and if you start amortizing the cost across the entire patient population, when you start increasing the price significantly, there's going to be a little bit of obstacles or hurdles towards adoption. And from our perspective, when we did the health economics analysis, we can see that there's roughly a break-even point of just under $1,000 when you start looking at the device from the hospital or institution's perspective to adopt this.
Okay.
So $600 as well as typically what is paid for a CT scan. And that's why when we did a comparative analysis, we felt that $600 seems to be a reasonable price point. By the way, we've talked to surgeons, and depending on their perspective as well, if it's an acute trauma surgeon, when we told him we'd be pricing this at $600, he said add another zero, it should be at $6,000. When we spoke to a bariatric surgeon, he said maybe $200-300. So it depends as well on the subspecialty of the surgeon.
Got it. Got it.
I'm curious what's the profit margin per unit?
So we're looking at roughly 75% to 80%. Right now, the device is expected to be selling for $600. COGS today are sitting at roughly 50. They're expected to go down a little bit more once we start hitting scale, but that's how everything stands today.
That's 90%, isn't it? Not 75.
From what I recall from our financial forecasts, the gross margins were anywhere between 75 to 80%. So
and how's the production being done? Is it being subcontracted, or you guys have a facility?
Yep. So the sensors are actually done in-house. In terms of the electronics and the packaging, these are done through third-party vendors. We then bring in everything in-house at our facilities, and we assemble everything over here, package it, and then we would be shipping it out.
And so by in-house, is it done to the employees, or is it done to you guys for now? In a sense that, when you're forecasting COGS as well as the cost, if you start hiring more employees to put the sensors together, would that have an impact on the cost structure?
So that is part of the cost structure itself. In terms of even growing the company moving forward, in terms of the headcount, that has been incorporated. The sensor assembly piece has been incorporated in the cost of the device.
Yeah.
So what are your top 3 obstacles for growth right now at a high level?
Well, for growth, I'd definitely be looking into a couple of years, but maybe I'd also like to think about my top 3 obstacles today. One of them is obviously the regulatory approval piece, which is any obstacle for any medical device company. Yeah. Adoption is also another obstacle, which you can think about in terms of today conducting our clinical studies and getting physicians excited about this, as well as in the future when it comes to sales. Any new technology usually faces hurdles and obstacles in terms of adoption. When it comes to scaling the company and growing it in a short period of time to be able to achieve high annual recurring revenue numbers for us to be a hot acquisition target for some of those medical devices. That's probably another obstacle that might maybe delay our exit strategy a little bit further down the line, which is something that a lot of investors might not appreciate.
So do you have an exit strategy right now?
It's definitely an acquisition play for us.
Good.
Any other questions?
No?
That's fantastic.
It was a great deck, Amir, and very well presented.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Appreciate your questions and your taking the time to listen to our presentations. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amr. Well done. You nailed it. And so let yourself out, and the judges, we're going to spend the next 5 minutes judging.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks. Congratulations. Well done. So remember, guys, that there are people outside our little room watching, so keep your comments to yourself. So you've got 5 minutes. You can turn off your camera and mute yourself. And we'll be back in 5 minutes with our next presenter. Fill out the scorecard, fill in the comments, and we'll see you in 4.5 minutes.
Sounds good.
Hi, Michael.
Hello,
How are you? Welcome.
I'm doing well. How are you all?
We're good. We're live, so just be aware. What we're going to do is you're going to share your screen, and when you're ready, you'll start, and you'll have 10 minutes to do your pitch, and then I'll interrupt you, and then you'll have 10 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll be done. So whenever you're ready, you start, and we'll start the timer.
Okay, that sounds good.
And how do you say the name of the company? I had trouble with it.
It's Porphosome Foundry,
Okay,
and we're at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center.
great.
I'm ready to go.
Fire away. Fire when ready.
Sure. Hi everyone. So my name is Michael. I'm a research associate at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center, and this evening I'm going to be discussing one of our breakthrough technologies for cancer imaging and therapy, which by the end of this year we hope to have advanced into first in-patient clinical trials. So first, the problem. So Princess Margaret, the majority of the patients that walk through our doors, they're there to see clinicians who are going to perform surgery as part of their treatment of their cancers. However, one of the biggest challenges our clinicians have is actually having the confidence during the time of surgery of knowing whether or not they've removed all of the cancer. And this challenge is known as the surgical margin paradigm. When you leave tumor behind, there's an increased chance of recurrence in that patient. And unfortunately, it's also associated with a lower rate of survival. So to put some numbers on the significance of this problem, if you look at some of the most common cancer types, in the United States alone, there are over 250,000 of these types of surgeries performed annually. And the rate of positive margin, or the rate at which we leave cancer behind, can range anywhere from 70% to over 20%, depending on where that tumor is. As I mentioned, leaving tumor behind, it's associated with poor outcomes. You have an increase in recurrence and a poor rate of survival in these patients. Now, the reason why we leave cancer behind is because it's really notoriously difficult to know at the time of surgery whether or not you removed everything. And therefore, speaking with our clinicians, they've been able to help us identify a problem space where they have this urgent unmet need. They don't have the right tools that provide intraoperative imaging for identifying where the tumor tissue is and assessing whether or not they've removed all the cancer the first time. So again, working with our clinicians, we've been developing a technology purpose-built to address these problems. And that technology is known as the Porphosome. So the Porphosome, it's a nanotechnology. It's actually a nanoparticle that you see right here. It's about 100 nanometers in diameter, and it's self-assembled from a proprietary building block known as pyrolipid. So the way Porphosomes are supplied to patients is that it's given as an infusion. It's a solution that's given through the vein about 24 to 48 hours prior to the patient undergoing surgery. Now, we infuse anywhere from 5 to 10 billion of these nanoparticles. And over that period, after the infusion, they circulate in the body, and through passive mechanisms, they'll accumulate in very high concentrations in the cancer, anywhere from 4 million to 500 million of our nanoparticles. And the reason why this accumulation is really significant is because by accumulating the tumor, the Porphosome provides clinicians the capability to image and identify where the tumor is, as well as perform treatment, either with light or by delivering drug. Some of the competitive advantages of our technology in general is it's fully patented in the major markets you see there. We have 5 patents, 3 of which have been completely issued, 2 of which are pending still in the United States. The manufacturing of this nanotechnology is actually quite economical. We've been able to successfully produce over 200 grams of clinical grade product with very high purity at very low cost. The product has been safely tested in over 5 species and has been shown to be non-toxic and biodegradable. And that's important for lowering the regulatory barriers as we proceed with our technology into clinical use. And finally, there's been an extensive preclinical validation of our nanotechnology. Over 48 publications have been produced at Princess Margaret. As well, there have been over 17 external validations of the technology, supporting that the Porphosome works as well as we say it does. So at Princess Margaret, we're very fortunate. We have access to some of the the best cancer models, the most high-tech, xenografts in a range of species. But one of the most productive collaborations we've had is actually with our lung cancer group. And from an economical perspective, lung cancer is a really interesting and a perfect fit for the porphosome for two reasons. One, the incidence rate of lung cancer is the highest in both men and women in the Western world. And also it's one of the richest markets in the US, currently valued at $182 million for image-guided interventions in 2019. So working with our clinicians in the lung cancer group at Princess Margaret, we've custom built a porphosome specific for what their needs are. They wanted a way of pre-operatively imaging the tumor with our particle using PET imaging. And they also wanted a capability of intraoperative imaging with fluorescence. This is where you shine light on the tumor at the time of surgery and it glows green for the surgeon, helping them identify where they need to make their excision. And they also wanted the additional capability in cases where they're not able to access the tumor to be able to still treat it, in this case with photothermal therapy, by shining laser light on the cancer and cooking the tumor at a temperature of about 65 degrees centigrade. So we validated this technology and the use of porphosomes in non-small cell lung cancer in a pivotal publication published in Cancer Research. It was in a highly unique and clinically relevant rabbit model. And since this publication, we've now had access and have begun generating data in clinically relevant lung cancer models in both pigs as well as dogs. So for our go-to-market strategy in lung cancer, the way we envision our porphosome being used is we would supply our porphosome in a vial to a clinician, and then using imaging equipment that's already present in the OR, such as a bronchoscope, surgeons will be able to inject patients with our porphosomes, and then after 48 hours, perform their routine standard of care on patients and have the added capability of fluorescence imaging as well as phototherapy in cases where the tumor is not accessible. Some of the advantages of this product vision include in lung cancer, we're actually addressing two markets with the same product. The first and the larger of the two markets is early stage resectable tumors, in which case the image-guided capabilities of the porphosomes are already a very significant step. But more importantly for us, about a quarter of patients are classified as non-resectable. These are patients that are typically put on palliative care and they're not able to perform any sort of treatment. We would actually have the first product to go to market specifically for these types of patients and provide a brand new treatment avenue for patients that would otherwise be on palliative care. In Canada alone, there's a very high unmet clinical need, and the market value is about $18 million a year, growing at a rate of about 9%. And with our technology, there's very simple integration with a lot of the robotic surgeries workflows that are actually being tested for lung cancer specifically, which is very exciting. In terms of our path to clinical trial, so this is a post-COVID revision of our timeline. We are now in the process of submitting our clinical trials application to Health Canada, and pending their availability to review our application, we should be ready to begin clinical trials at the beginning of next year. And that will also be dependent on REB approval at Princess Margaret. So we would be doing a first-in-human trial that will last between 4 to 6 months. And we would be testing about 60 patients with lung cancer before proceeding later in the summer of next year into a phase 1B trial across a number of different tumor sites. So what would those other tumor sites be? Hopefully by now you can appreciate that with this nanotechnology, it's really interesting to use and perfectly built for lung cancer, but it's also highly applicable for a number of other different cancer types. So presently we're clinical ready to begin clinical trials beyond lung cancer, also in prostate, ovarian, head, neck, and uterine cancer. Not only do we have our clinical champions that are shown in the pictures on the right, but also these cancer types are very significant market sizes as well. So we wouldn't be doing these clinical trials for innovation's sake or scientific curiosity. We would, in fact, once we have our lung cancer product, be expanding into markets that are also growing at an equivalent rate. That could also sustain the growth of the technology. And also we're looking at the preclinical development in pancreatic cancer and glioblastoma. And these are significant selections as well because they would qualify for orphan status, which through the US FDA, as well as the Chinese and the Japanese Food and Drug Administrations, would actually accelerate the clinical approval of our products for clinical testing in those markets specifically. And so there you have it. The Porphosome is a first-in-class nanotechnology for cancer imaging and therapy, and we truly believe that it will change the future of patient care in cancer. Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you. Well done. So judges, questions? Who wants to start?
I can start. Great presentation. To echo Jeff, I thought you did a great job. Couple questions just on the IP strategy. What was the thought process on 5 patents in 5 jurisdictions?
It's actually 5 different variants of the same technology. Sorry. So the first 2 and the most significant are actually the composition of matter and the scale of manufacturing of the schematic you see here of this particular variant of the Porphosome. And then we have 3 other variants, and they were all unique enough, and we believed had independent commercial potential to proceed with patenting those separately. Also, because we're at UHN, we have lawyers on retainer, so it's actually not very expensive for us to submit these patents and to see them through to completion. So we're taking as much advantage of having those lawyers as possible before we spin off into our own company.
Okay. Is the IP owned by UHN or
completely? Yeah.
Okay. And have you looked into their IP policy?
We have.
Okay. Okay. And do you know what the cost is of maintaining the patent portfolio? Assuming you get it from UHN.
I think currently they're spending about $50,000 a year. But that also includes some of the fees associated with one patent that's particularly troublesome with the US. But yeah, I suspect it would probably be in and around $50,000 a year.
Okay.
And the lifespan of these patents are, the first expiry would be 2035.
Great.
Michael, so when you spin out the company, what happens? Does UHN become a shareholder and the company owns the IP, or does the company license it from UHN?
Yeah, we're trying to do the spinoff where UHN would take equity, and as a result, they would deposit the IP in its entirety into the new company.
That makes
Michael, that was a great presentation, actually, very well drafted. Sounds like I'm not a technical person, but it's very impressive what you're doing. It clearly is hitting some high intensity areas. You said the market value of what you're trying to do, the whole thing, is $180 million. Is that correct?
It's the best we can do. Unfortunately, we've had access to a lot of the market reports from all the reputable companies. There is no market report for image-guided interventions in oncology. So one of the things we did when we had a bit of money left over is we hired a consultant to do a market review for us. And this was the value they came back to us with for the US market as their best estimate.
So if there's nobody else in the market, one presumes that you could, in theory, capture all of it, right? This is, I'm assuming, calculated based on number of surgeries, amount of material that goes into a surgery, just multiplied 1 by 2, right?
That's right. Currently, our closest competitor would be in a phase 2 trial, and they, along with ourselves, were both being reviewed presently by a pharma company for possible full licensing. So.
And there's no, do you hear any adverse reaction from any of the surgeons, any concerns about using nanotechnology? I mean, there's, you hear all this noise from the industry around what it can happen, how it can just implode and go out of control. While it's non-toxic and biodegradable, according to the presentation. But do you hear any resistance from the surgical community or the oncologists on what can happen? Can this go out of control? Is there like a risk of it kind of behaving unpredictably or unplanned?
With the technology I presented today, there is not. So a lot of the toxicities that are observed are actually because of what you see right here in the center of it's the drug. So a lot of nanotechnologies, they're delivering anti-cancer drugs. Whereas with our nanoparticle, we're taking advantage of the nanoparticle itself and this unique building block, which I sort of skipped over. But the magic of the porphosome is this little ring here, this porphyrin ring. And it's this ring that's non-toxic and biodegradable that gives the fluorescence imaging as well as the phototherapy. So there's no toxicity associated with the porphosome with either the subunit that's used to construct it or the nanoparticle itself. And we've avoided a lot of the toxicities that were observed in some very famous failures, like Bind would be an excellent example, where it was actually the drug they were loading was too toxic. And that's why they were seeing dose-limiting toxicities and unfortunately, eventually clinical failures, right? They weren't able to show any efficacy because they weren't able to inject enough of their nanoparticles into patients without observing toxicities for the drug to be effective.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't quite understand your pricing strategy, meaning how would you charge per hospital, per patient, or like how's that going to be?
Unfortunately, I'm a scientist, so I'm trying to learn the commercialization piece. I can't answer that, unfortunately. One of our first goals as a new company will be actually to hire a CEO who would hopefully fill in that gap, right? The lack of commercialization knowledge, whereas we bring to the table the scientific expertise as well as the clinical champions who can really develop the trials and then sell the technology from a clinical perspective. But the actual pricing strategy, we've not thought that through because that's not our expertise.
Got it. So Michael, from your perspective, why have this sounds to be a big problem? It's a need. Why haven't the big players out there been able to really solve this? So they haven't really gone into. They don't really understand that this is a really problem which can be solved. So you guys have the first mover advantage from a competitive aspect. Any thought on that?
From the feedback we've received, they would like to license the technology.
Okay.
So it is quite costly to do this type of research, particularly because you need access to tumor models in large animals. So I presented the rabbit, but we've also now done pig and dog. The advantage of those two models in particular is that not only can you test your agent, but also all the imaging equipment, right? You can take human imaging equipment and use it in a dog and get, a really good use case. Whereas if you're doing it in a mouse, a huge bronchoscope on a mouse, it's not really, feasible.
Okay.
So they like to purchase, right? Sort of shop around for different technologies and then pick the ones that they think are the most promising.
Got it.
How close are you to human trials?
We hope by the end of this year. So currently we have academic funding as well as philanthropic support to support the cost of running a clinical trial at Princess Margaret. We have our CTA drafted, our clinical trials application for Health Canada. Right now, the challenge is actually it's Health Canada, they're not taking on new applications because they're really focused on COVID. So I think the COVID, obviously it upset a lot of people's plannings, but us in particular, because this was sort of like a 5-year process to get to this point, and now they're not returning our calls. So
can you walk us through the management as well as the co-founders' backgrounds again?
The co-founders?
Yeah.
So there's, I'm not even sure I qualify as a co-founder. The technology was discovered by Professor Gang Zhang and Professor Mark Laval. So Gang is at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. He's been there for over a decade. Mark is departed to the University of Buffalo to start his own lab. I myself, this was part of my master's project that I started 6 years ago. And I've been sticking with the scale-up manufacturing as well as the preclinical testing of the technology since then. So when I first joined, we were in mice, and now we completed our primate study last year in China. We're ready to go to first in patient, but in terms of co-founders, the biggest one would be the University Health Network. They own the majority of the IP.
We have time for one more question. All right, well, listen, Michael, it was an outstanding presentation. It's terrific. I mean, it's brilliant technology, so congratulations on that. That's it. Let yourself, unshare your screen and let yourself out. The judges now have 5 minutes to complete the scorecard and write their comments. Thank you, Michael. It was really well done. It was outstanding. So I'll be back in 5 minutes. So we're just waiting for the next contestant. I realized, by the way, that there's only 4 companies pitching tonight. We had actually 2 companies drop out. They didn't survive the COVID, I guess, or had some kind of change of plans. So we've only have 4 tonight. Here's Eric. So you get to go home early or stay home early. Eric, how are you?
Good. How are you, Jeff?
Good. Welcome. So the deal is that we've got a live audience, so careful what you say, even now. We're going to ask you to share your screen and then start whenever you're ready. You'll have 10 minutes to do your pitch, and then there'll be 10 minutes of Q&A by the judges, and then you'll unshare your screen and let yourself out, and then the judges will do their judging. So whenever you're ready, share your screen, and away you go. Good luck.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so my name is Eric Lloyd. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Brink Bionics. We estimate there's around 27 million hardcore PC gamers all over North America. And competition between gamers is fierce because everyone is looking for an edge. Whether it's keyboards, gaming mice, or high-tech monitors, all these devices try to reduce gamers' latency, which improves the reaction time, because reaction time is critical. What we've developed is Impulse. Impulse is a neural interface glove that enhances reaction time for PC gamers and allows them to compete at the speed of their thoughts. Impulse provides up to 34% increase to reaction speed, which amounts to about 80 milliseconds. And this for gamers can be the difference between winning and losing. So the demo that I'm going to show here shows 2 computers. On the left is our Impulse Alpha prototype connected, and the computer on the right has a regular gaming mouse hooked up. And what you'll be able to see is that Impulse will be able to shoot before the mouse every single time. So while this time difference isn't critical for us in our daily lives, this time difference is the change between taking out an opponent or getting taken out yourself when playing fast-paced first-person shooters or action games. We unveiled our technology at EGLX 2019, which is the big gaming convention in Toronto held every year. We had 300 beta user signups, 1,000 plus booth visits out of 30,000 attendees over 3 days. Our beta product, as you can see here, is complete. We're shipping it out in late June, early July to our beta users and to some influencers as well. And we estimate the market size for Impulse in North America to be about just under $5.5 billion in 2020, with that expected to grow at a 9% compound annual growth rate to just under $7 billion by 2023. Now, I don't go in any detail in our IP, but what I talk about as an overview here is our technology roadmap. We're really not interested in being a one-product company. A lot of our technology is based on our 2 core IP patents that were filed just this past year. So we really want to offer, in terms of PC technology, a tiered version of the product. So in order to capture different aspects of the market, both gamers who will pay a bit extra for the top technology and more casual gamers who don't want to spend as much, we want to offer tiered products with varying degrees of functionality and therefore varying costs. Long term, we'd like to expand our products to include console and mobile as well, to allow eventually gamers to map all their game functions to their peripheral nervous systems in a way that enhances their performance. We're also evaluating the applications of our technology in analytics. So whereas technology like this may be more difficult to get directly into esports competitions, the analytics model would allow us to offer a version to esports teams and competitive players to be able to help take data from the nervous system and use that to inform gameplay and potential coaching decisions. Now, we didn't have a lot of comparisons in terms of potential revenue projections and numbers. The closest analog we found was a company like Logitech when they first launched their gaming technology in 2015. So this exponential growth curve is what we tried to follow when we put together our revenue projections of really the revenue targets we want to meet as we grow this technology into the market. So initially this year, we're looking to sell 1,000 units, at least, through a pre-order campaign. Whether this is through our own site or through some kind of crowdfunding platform is logistics that we're still working on in the background. And then moving forward, we want to grow this technology big. We want to really push neural interfaces as the new standard for gaming peripheral technology into 2021, especially with the growth that's happened in the number of gamers as a result of everybody being at home due to COVID. Although a lot of companies have suffered in this time, it really is the optimal time for a new gaming technology. So we plan on growing this and doubling each year going through to 2024 are the projections we would like to hit. In terms of our distribution pathways, we're evaluating two strategies. The first one is as a result of successful initial online sales, we would use this traction to approach different existing gaming hardware manufacturers to establish some kind of distribution or licensing agreement, taking advantage as a result of their distribution channels, manufacturing, and marketing capabilities. On the other hand, we'll continue to move forward into next year, exploring pathways through existing distributors, online, through things like Amazon and Best Buy, and then looking at brick and mortar stores as well for initial product offerings. And then eventually expanding globally to offering the product in China and the rest of Asia. In terms of marketing targets, we've mentioned, okay, so we want to hit 50,000 units in the first year, but how do we actually reach those people? So one of the biggest, and speaking with a couple organizations that manage influencers and gaming streamers, really say that streamers are the best direction for us to go in terms of marketing channels. Their conversion rates can be as high as 15% with the right alignment between product and streamer. So for our pre-order campaign, in order for us to reach those 1,000 unit sales, if we're to use only streamers, looking at small streamers, so people who play video games while other people watch, they have maybe 100 concurrent views at any one time. At a 5% conversion rate, we get maybe 5 sales per stream. And then with each streamer showing the product once a day for 5 days, we need maybe 40 small streamers to be able to promote our product and get 1,000 sales. For launch in 2021, we'd be looking at medium-sized streamers, so people who have 1,000 concurrent viewers or more to promote the product. And then we're estimating a larger conversion rate here, about 10%, which would result in about 100 medium-sized streamers, each promoting it for 5 days. So although these numbers will change as we actually start interacting with these streamers and getting results on what those actual conversion rates are, this gives us a bottom-up approach to understand the different factors that will influence our sales going into 2021. In terms of our company's major milestones, right now we are testing the beta product, optimizing the algorithms, and we're currently manufacturing our beta units. So we're having 40 units manufactured locally, and those will be shipped to beta users in late June, early July. Through July to September, we'll be gathering feedback from those users and integrating that feedback into a final product. We estimate that most of the changes will be software-based, not hardware, so they'll be less expensive and less time-consuming to implement. We'll also be working with a contract firm to optimize our bill of materials, find distributors and find suppliers for all the components we have, and then finalize our design for manufacturing as well. So that by the time we're opening our pre-order campaign, we have this process undergoing. So that campaign will go through September, and then we'll be starting our manufacturing in November through to February. So our team consists of myself. I'm the CEO of Brink Bionics. I recently graduated from my master's in systems design engineering from the University of Waterloo, where I focused on machine learning and artificial intelligence applications for bionic limb technology. My co-founder is the director of the lab, Dr. Ning Zhang, who is our chief strategy officer. My other co-founder is Dr. Jaiwen He. He's the chief research scientist in the lab and chief technology officer of Brink Bionics. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. That was terrific. You lost me for a minute. For some reason, my Zoom I got kicked off, but I'm back. So I missed a minute or so while I panicked, but I think everybody else heard the whole presentation, and they're the judges, so it didn't really matter, I guess. So who's got a question for Eric? We've got 10 minutes for questions.
2 questions. One, is the patent based on the hardware or the software? Or is it a combination of both?
Both. So we have 2 provisional patents filed. One is on the hardware, so this hardware here, so capturing muscle signals from the hand. The second is on our algorithms, which are very low latency. Basically, we can detect intention in a very, very short period of time, which allows us to predict movements. So that's our second patent.
And the hardware, is it, the sensory hardware, is that something you have to manufacture, or is that off the shelf?
So the hardware itself is the combination of components is custom, like the boards themselves, but all the integrated chips are off the shelf. So we have no custom integrated chips.
And the cost of manufacturing the product, what do you anticipate that to be?
I've got that here actually. So what we have is about estimated to be about $30 a unit for the Impulse Pro, and then we have our markups here, so about 150% markup, and then distributor markup of about 25% on top of that, and retailer would be about 100% on top of that. So leaving us with estimated price of about $200 Canadian for the Pro version, and about 140 for the lower cost version.
So Eric, quick question for you. How would the actual process work again? Because like you got also different games, and also within consoles, you may have different approaches. Were those buttons that were embedded into the actual mechanism, or it was just purely tension?
So it's pure. So basically, what we're grabbing is the EMG signals from the intrinsic muscles in the hand through these sensors. Actually, I'll show it to the camera. So these sensors grab the EMG signals, we interpret those signals, and then it sends this data to a software program, like a driver running on the computer. And that driver talks to the operating system the same way your computer mouse does. So our software will send a mouse click signal to the operating system, and the operating system interprets that mouse click signal from our software the same way it would interpret the mechanical mouse click from your mouse.
Okay.
What are the risks of it going wrong? So the signal in terms of, how often does it go wrong, or you didn't intend to click the mouse, but it accidentally does, and you end up doing the wrong move in the game?
Fantastic question. So basically, it depends a lot on the user's ability to learn. There's a small learning curve with the technology. So basically, the way the whole training process works is you plug it in, open the software, you train the machine learning algorithms with some different clicks. It captures builds a custom model based on your nervous system and uses that model to predict clicks. And then from there, the user understands and learns over time how to reliably make those signals consistently. So initially, the user will probably have a higher rate of false positives. They'll learn, and those false positive rates will come down over time.
Is there anything else in the market like this, which is based on human nervous system and the response, or is this really not just a new product, but an entirely new field of technology?
So there's other technology that use muscle signals to interpret different movements. The biggest difference is, and the biggest comparative would be Control Labs, which makes a muscle sensor armband. So the big difference between us and them is not so much in the electronics themselves, but in the algorithms. Most of the EMG processing algorithms, they take a very long window of data to make a decision. So they may have a delay of a quarter of a second before they understand the movement you're trying to do. Our algorithms can interpret those intentions with about 5 milliseconds of data. So that's where our big advantage is.
If I'm like a novice player or so, is there a technology, or is there your software, whatever, to be able to tell that, okay, from a visual perspective, to get the feel as well that in this particular click, you were 34% better? Because is it always going to be 34% better? Could it be 30% better, 25? If the guy does something, can it get to 40%? Are you working on a technology to basically increase this from 34% to 50%, 60%? Some thoughts on that.
So it will vary a bit user to user. We haven't dived in deep into what the factors may be. Part of it could be age, part of it could be number of motor units in the muscle. There's some biological factors, but there's also a biological limit to how early we can predict the signal using muscle signals. So we're working with about 5 milliseconds of data, so we can cut that down a bit, but we've reached the upper limit of what we're able to detect in terms of speed. Really, advancements are going to come from in our technology is being able to predict a wide variety of different commands reliably.
You mentioned that in the professional gaming circuits, this would not be allowed. Do you think there is improvement in the gamers by using this while practicing?
That's one of the things that we're going to be investigating further through the analytics platform. So basically, are there ways of using muscle signal data to infer some kind of information about the user's nervous system that isn't a direct real-time performance enhancement, but can be used to inform different decisions about, how they're moving, how they're holding the mouse, whether they're tense or not during gameplay, or whether they're fatigued and tired. So there are ways we can work into the competitive esports space that are not a real-time performance enhancement, but would still use the same hardware. Hope that answers your question.
It's just like pro golfers can't use carts.
Yeah.
I hate to take this down a different path, but could there be a military application to this?
So we've thought about the military applications. The one thing you run into with military is extremely high precision. Like if you were to use this as like a neural hair trigger for a rifle, you would have to have your false positive rates down so low that they would never accidentally shoot when they're not intending to shoot. So the performance would have to be extraordinarily reliable to pursue a military application.
Eric, can you tell us a bit more about the team? And apologies if I missed it, but backgrounds in other startups, who's sort of the business brain, the tech brain, what are the team members and what are their roles?
Sure. So let me go back here. So the three co-founders are on the left. So Ning is the director of the engineering bionics lab. So he's handles a lot of the IP has come from his lab and the research done in his lab. I've been handling more of the product development and business operations. And then Dr. Jaiwan He will be serving as our chief technology officer. So he's actually developing the algorithms, writing the software in the back end. And I've been handling mostly the hardware development and working with contracted teams to develop the hardware. In terms of business, we've had our business advisors who have really helped to compensate for the fact that we are very new to the startup environment. None of us have run a business before previously, but our business advisors have combined about 50 years of experience running different tech companies. So they've really helped us to turn from a really tech-focused team into a product and business-focused team.
What are the risks, Eric, that this can be dismissed as gimmicky, like too gimmicky, when more users start to use it, and then it gets the other extreme where instead of being unfair advantage, if it's just seen as more style than substance?
So in terms of being gimmicky, the one thing we work to ensure is that if we're going to build a neural interface, it can't be a gimmicky technology that just does something kind of neat. It has to have a measurable performance enhancement. So that's where we're trying to ensure that we stay on the path of an actual meaningful advantage that no other technology can provide. So that's how we avoid the gimmick side. In terms of avoiding the unfair advantage, the messaging around basically other gaming peripheral technology improves your latency. So Logitech just released a mouse last year that has such low latency, it's got a 10 to 20 millisecond improvement on other mice on the market. So for Logitech, if you buy that mouse, you have an unfair advantage over everyone who doesn't have it. So we follow the same principle. You can buy an advantage with our technology, just like you can buy an advantage with getting a lower latency monitor, lower latency mouse, or any other technologies. We follow the same trend. We're just the next leap in that trend.
Got it. Thank you.
What's the funding you've had like till date so far? How you guys been growing from the growth?
We've had some initial seed to business advisors in the early days. So Brink Bionics actually started as a prosthetics company where we had some initial funding, and then we pivoted to gaming about a year ago. So we've had mostly grant funding. So we had 30,000 in convertible note investment, 30,000 from FedDev as a match funding, and then another 30,000 in grants. So that's been all of our funding up to this point. So we've been basically able to take our technology. All in all, the money we had left for the glove was about $35,000 Canadian. So we went from research lab idea all the way to a beta product with about $35,000. So that's our funding up to date. We are looking in the process of trying to raise more funding right now.
Okay. Do you have beta testers using it right now?
So we have one beta user in Toronto who's currently using it right now. He's a competitive Fortnite player. We also have the beta units we're currently manufacturing are shipping out to about 20 other beta users by late June, early July.
We have time for one more question.
I'm just curious at this gaming convention. Sound like what you showed was pretty a big hit. Did you get any interest from the current mouse manufacturers like Logitech and like those guys into, hey, like what are you guys like up to? Which would help kind of like validate what you guys are doing right now.
We didn't have as much interaction with them. In terms of where we were relative to these other companies, we're kind of crammed in the corner of the convention. So we had some lower traffic, but we didn't have as much interaction with mouse manufacturers. From what we saw, there were mostly the big gaming publishers at the convention and some peripheral manufacturers, but not as many.
Okay.
We haven't had any direct interaction with these larger peripheral manufacturers yet.
Well, that's it. Your time is up. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Eric. Good luck. You can unshare your screen and let yourself out of the room. The judges can start doing their grading, and we have 5 minutes, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thanks a lot, Eric.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. So I'm just trying to figure out how to unshare the screen. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's great. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, welcome. Who's that?
It's Melissa here.
Hi, Melissa. Jeff Dennis here. Welcome.
Hi.
So we're just in a bit of a break. So
Oh,
make yourself, that's okay. You're right on time. Just I'll give you. We're live, so just be aware of what you say and what you do on screen. And but I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of what's going to happen. And we're just in a break, so the judges can score the last one. We've got about 2.5 minutes left. When that's over, I'll invite you to share your screen, and then you can start whenever you're ready. You'll have 10 minutes to do your presentation, and then I'll stop you there, and then you'll have 10 minutes of Q&A, and then that's it. And at the end, you'll just unshare your screen and leave the room, and then the judges, again, will do their thing. Okay, does that make some sense?
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to test out the camera. It's
Yeah, go ahead. You can go on. You can turn on your camera.
Does it work? Okay. Because
No.
I was just trying to turn it on right now. And
We don't see you.
Oh.
I hear you well.
That's just making sure everything's all plugged in here. Oh, it says it cannot start this video for some reason.
Hey, Melissa, it's Melanie. Whenever you click on it, like it pops up for a second and then goes away.
It says it can't start the video, but I've been.
Oh, you can't start the video because I'm sharing my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
I didn't realize that.
Okay, so go ahead now. You should be able to do it.
wow, it says it's failed. Why is it saying that? I just double checked this too. Is it not working?
Did you get a little pop-up of me asking you to start your video?
Oh, yes. And it says there's another screen that says you can't start your video.
Is it a built-in camera or
I have an external camera actually.
maybe, yeah, maybe it's not plugged in correctly because it shows whenever you click the button, like click start video, it pops up for like a second and then disconnects.
Well, the age-old solution to every problem computers is a reboot, right?
Okay, yeah. Let me just go.
Just restart Zoom.
I'll do that. Actually, thank you so much.
Don't worry. Don't be nervous. We'll wait for you. We're not going anywhere. We got nowhere to go. We're in the lockdown.
I use this all the time. That's why I'm a little bit surprised right now.
All right. Well, but don't get flustered. Just relax. Everybody's cool.
Oh.
So there she is.
There it works. Thank you. I'm like, I know I use this all the time, but yeah, sometimes when you're logging in. Okay, so let me just make sure I get the share screen. So make sure my presentation's here. And I can press the share screen. Oh, is it not pressed? Can you see my screen or?
Not yet.
Oh.
Now it's coming up.
Is it?
It's coming. It says you've started sharing your screen.
It's just loading.
Yeah, no worries. We'll wait.
When you use this, perhaps from 300 million, they've gone to 350 million now. So
I think everyone's on Zoom.
yeah.
Here we go.
Is it?
I see something. I don't know if it's what you want us to see. It looks like a TV test pattern.
It's supposed to be the first page of my slide.
Is there any words on your first page?
Not on mine. What do you guys see?
Yeah, it's kind of like a blue screen.
Blank
screen.
Blue screen.
Melissa, do you want to try advancing a slide and see if it changes for us?
Sure. Okay. You know what? I'm on right now a grades, like it's a black screen too, like it's flickering. It's trying to load. Let me see here.
It's okay. Do you want to maybe?
Sorry, that's the email now. I just went back. Sorry. Let me just stop sharing for 2 seconds because I just don't even. Okay, let's try that one more time here.
Yeah, give it one more go. If not, you can send me a copy of your presentation via email and I can try sharing it.
Okay, because I'm on it right now.
Well, it says that it's going to start screen sharing, but it's slow. Like it doesn't come up like it usually does.
Do you wanna send me a copy of the presentation via email and maybe I can advance the slides for you?
Okay, looks like it's about to share, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, maybe give it another minute or so. If not, we can always.
Yeah,
I can always do it for you.
Like I just tested all this out today too.
No problem. No problem.
It's technology. It happens.
I got kicked off the last Zoom, like during the last presentation, I got kicked off Zoom. So everybody's having issues. So we'll all bear with each other. Don't worry.
It's a little, yeah, it's stressful when you just want it to work.
I know. So don't
Okay.
worry about it. That's
This
not.
is building. This is building the anticipation. This is just what you wanted.
Melanie, do you want me to email it to you? You said.
Yeah, shoot me an email with the attachment, and I can share my screen, and then you can just tell me when I advance slides. Maybe we can add a minute or two to the presentation time just for
Okay.
yeah, just as that buffer
Okay.
of
So
me.
I will sorry, stop. Sorry, I should stop sharing because it's gonna just slow it down right now.
You were also our last presentation, so don't worry about bottling anyone up in the line.
I don't want to keep anyone from like dinner or anything. That's the worst. Okay, let me just make sure I email it to you. Oh, it is slow. Why is it so slow? Okay. Is it stopped sharing yet? Oh,
Yep.
finally. Yep. Okay, so just give me 2 seconds here. I'm gonna. Okay, it says it's loading up the attachment to send now.
You may be having internet troubles tonight.
Looks like it's okay, but you know what? You never know. Like, I turned off everything too, so for that very reason. Let me just. So I sent Melanie. I did send it to you. I don't know if.
This is going to be a scintillating recording when it's done.
Yeah.
I guess
You
we'll,
know,
we'll have to add.
I will try one more time if that that's okay, because I don't want to.
Did you send me an email just now?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so let's try this again. Okay. I'm always hoping.
What kind of file is it? A PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a PowerPoint.
Mm.
But there is a lot of images, I guess. There's quite a bit of images, so I think that.
I don't know. We've had a lot of PowerPoints this week.
Yeah, I know there. I don't know which other alternative there is. This is.
Can you just save it as a PDF and go through the PDF?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. Okay.
Got your email.
Is it working or?
Give me one moment.
Why don't I try the suggestion of the. It wasn't loading, was it, right now?
No.
Were you sharing your screen or the file?
Oh, I was sharing my screen.
Okay.
That's I'm just gonna do the PDF suggestion. Let's try that right now. See. Usually the PDF is a little more tricky because you have to scroll through it, but it's
Yeah, that could mess up your formatting though.
It's okay. I'm just loading your PowerPoint right now on my desktop, so just give me a moment. Maybe I can get it up for you.
in the PDF is taking a long time. almost there. I'm getting converted right now.
Last night's cohort of 5 companies was almost like a COVID theme night. 3 of the 5 companies had pivoted towards COVID-related product.
I'll fall into that category.
Well, that's good.
I'm gonna try and share it on my end, okay, guys?
Okay, thank you, Mel.
Thank you so much. Thank you. My PDF is still converting right now.
Do you guys see my screen?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes.
All right, Mel, you're the best.
Jeff, you're gonna need to keep the timing for this one.
Okay.
Just since I'm doing this, and then Melissa, just let me know. Do you guys see the actual PowerPoint or the presenters mode?
We
Presentation mode now, yeah.
Yes.
Do you see presentation mode or just the presentation itself? Like, do you see what's coming up next?
No.
No.
Okay, awesome. And then Melissa, just let me know when you want me to switch the slide. And Jeff, maybe tack on another minute to the time, like maybe 11 or 12 minutes, so that we can account for the slide change.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Start whenever you're ready, Melissa. Start.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to make this quick. Similar to what Jeff was just saying, that talk about pivoting. I think a lot we find ourselves as founders. You know what, we gotta be. This is time to be creative and making sure that we, even though I'm still doing, moving forward with my company. And I don't know if everyone remembers from last time, but I just put a few slides in here. So sorry, next, I guess, next, or thanks. So I had invented the high heel protector, and the reason why I created it was to solve my own problem. And I'm going to quickly show you on, for those just to refresh. Here, if you want to see, this is heel, and just women's high heels get stuck in grass, grates, you name it, right? So I've had many embarrassing moments, including, my mother had a terrible fall many years ago, but anyways, it's that's my main product, right? And it's 3D printed. So I think just being in part of that ecosystem, I decided to, like, you'll see in a second how I pivoted, but sorry, next. So just I've sold 12,000 units, probably within a year and a half of my launch. And that's pretty much without any marketing dollars or anything. And that's because I created my product based on need, right? So you'll see the commonality in the theme. However, we did have to pivot because, as you can see, most of my, a lot of my sales came from weddings, outdoor weddings, as well as graduations. So those have been canceled. However, sorry, next. So we do, sorry, just and just a refresher how we actually sell our product. We have them actually priced as 20, so you have them in a subscription box, but we also sell them online for $39.99. But I was fortunate enough to be able to go to London Fashion Week twice. That's through the Canadian government. So at Canada House there, I was able to showcase with other designers and really test out the UK market. And interestingly enough, they were actually paying 3 times as much as the Canadian market. So that's also part of my iteration. So part of my business plan moving forward is focusing really on the EU market, just because it's the same amount of effort and 3 times the pay. And so that will help, recover some of the losses that from all the canceled events. And sorry, next. And just to highlight, a lot of people want to know about competitive, like, are there any other products like ours out there? There are, but there are very few. And it's because it's such a tricky, just looking at it, it is simple. We filed it's a patent pending right now, utility and design. And the way we solved it is really iterating with the silicon. So it's actually 2 pieces. And whereas like our competitors, Soulmates, they were actually on Shark Tank, and they were able, they actually, their design, there's a hole in the back and and a lot of people have complained about them. However, they do over like 10 million a year, I believe. So just to give you an idea about the market size and what people are able to do, and they are a startup too, but probably 10 years ago. So sorry, next. Oh. And so this is our just to introduce you guys what's new. In terms of it, we had to pivot because just to say, like, we lost a lot of business from the canceled weddings, etc. So with masks being at a shortage right now, I originally decided to sew some masks, so I've done that. So I had to learn to do that. But we also decided to push out, we had another product that I wasn't going to launch until next year, but this actually really forced us to, it actually made us expedite our launch for our high heel wedge. And the reason why we did that was because a lot of people said to me, they don't like to wear heels. So, and again, I was trying to solve the problem of comfort, right, for like events. So, in this way, I'm actually able to capture both audience, just, bigger, wider market range. So not just the stilettos, but also capturing the wedges as well. But the interesting part about our wedge, the sole is going to be 3D printed, but it's going to be interchangeable. So it also falls along the theme of sustainability, and as well as being, fashion and function, right? And sorry, next. Oh, okay. And so as I started sewing, I actually ended up partnering with another lady from New York. And we actually are right now we're trying to make our mask, like my mask, into a wearable. And it's actually to help tell temperature. And the reason why we thought that was important was because, moving forward in a new normal, how do we know? A lot of times we don't know if we should be in a crowd. And if there is a crowd, is there a way for us to be able to distinguish who has a temperature? So using my 3D printer, we're actually using a resin that is able to change color, but she's actually putting in another microchip in order to actually make it more predictable. And it's also going to be app activated, because the app will be able to track the speed at which it changes color. Sorry. So the way it works is it will change color, and right now we're trying to use the valve on the actual mask itself. So as it changes color, it also will be, it'll tell you on your app for sure if you have a fever, or it'll actually show up. Sorry, next. Next. Oh. And just to give you an idea about the market size, so including the high heel market, although that's like less right now because the women's dress shoe market is a $35 billion industry. Right now, just adding that on, face mask alone, this is like non-woven. I look specifically, we'd be targeting like about $1 billion. And that's just between the EU market and as well as the North America. So I'm going to focus on those two. And as well as my high heel range, which was 850 million target before, it will grow because I'm also capturing the wedge as well, which will be a little bit of a different market, but it's still, again, within comfort and function and fashion. And one other thing is, even though the wedding industry is being pretty much canceled, the outdoor and patio spaces, once they start opening up, that's actually a few planners told me that's going to be another space. So that's why I put in like the $2.5 billion in there, because that's going to be between Europe and everything. Everyone's going to be expanding their patio space. So that's outdoors. And next. Next. Thank you. Sorry. And yes, just to talk a bit more about sustainability, the reason why moving forward, it's really important for fashion brands. It's always been important to talk about sustainability, but I think right now, just going by what a lot of the main brands are doing, everyone is, especially in the UK right now, they're all collaborating right now, and sort of utilizing their resources. So just because my product, even though it's 3D printed, it's also, the idea of it sustains a high heel for 3 times more, extends, sorry, the life of the heel 3 times more. So that also reduces the wastage that's created by shoes, and shoes can take as long as over 50 years to decompose. And you know, sticking with 3D printing, our company becomes 80% more environmentally friendly as opposed to another accessory manufacturer in our sector. And oh, sorry, next. Yeah, and this is our projection. So I just updated our numbers. So it is going to be, we're taking almost a pretty big loss this year, but just because of the demand for masks, and because it's going to be a wearable product, we're going to price it at $70 because it's going to be falling under the wearable tax. So that will actually make up for my current, the losses, because I'm selling my product right now for $39.99, right? So that'll help also make up for the losses and speed it up. And especially if like we've gotten a lot of like, you know, once I put a mask up there, like a lot of people have been already buying, and that's with just me sewing them. So I know, we obviously know there's the demand, and more, and people are not just going to have one mask, they're going to have multiple. So, oh, next. Oh, next. And so moving forward, how am I going to do all this? Actually, we, during this time period, we actually got into the Foundry, which is in Paris. And it's actually a program that's sponsored by the French government. They are right now extremely interested in 3D printing, and especially how it relates to fashion. So we've been fortunate enough to be their 3D printing company that will actually be in their program. The program will also have funding because of from the French government. And also we were, during this time period, we were actually nominated for the Draper's Footwear Award, so for sustainability. And what's interesting about that is I'm in the same category as Aldo Shoes, Sperry, and Hunter Boots, just to give you an idea about this award. It's a UK award that's quite, it's one of the rare, it's a footwear award specifically, and it's sponsored by names like Skechers. So we're pretty excited to be nominated in the same category as those big brands. Next. Oh. Oh. And yeah, just to reiterate, so before I got a lot of my sales from like big events like the Queen's Plate, but that's been canceled this year. And so because we had such a great, my sales really went up from the UK, we are gonna, when I'm in Paris, we're gonna focus also on leveraging the relationship created with the Canadian Embassy over there, because they're getting us meetings to like the Royal Ascot and events like that. And in the UK, they're really anxious to open up. So it's a little bit different, I realize, with certain markets, but even though we have this like loss in revenue, I see it now because between our wedge product as well as our mask, our wearable mask, I know that we're gonna like pick that back up like by a year and a half. Sorry, next. Great. And just to give you an idea, this is our team right now, and I just onboarded Ron. He's an old friend of mine, but he's also a programmer. He was at JP Morgan formerly, so he just finished his contract, and he's actually going to help us with the app part of the mask. So that's what he's helping me out with, on how to like track that. So track this, sorry, the temperature change in order to tell someone's fever. Next. And yeah, so this comes to the end of our presentation, and just, you know, a few like ideas about why also we're going to be raising additional funds. So we were able to actually raise through friends and family 50,000 right now during this time period. So that's how I was able to sort of get some material to prototype our our mask actually and iterate the UV, I guess, resin. So we can get our mask actually onto the market. So that's what I've been using it for. But I know that we're going to need to raise more, especially if I want to expand in Europe. And with fashion tech, I think the most important part is being in the environment where it's most high in demand. Yeah, so that's the end right now.
I think that's it too for time. So thank you very much. That was very good. In spite of all the technical difficulties, you got through it, so that was good. So we now have 10 minutes for questions, judges.
Yeah, so Melissa, with regards to the marketing of the product that you had for high heels, you mentioned it was primarily through events as well as weddings. Have you tried online advertisement?
I have, and I got some, because I'm at the Fashion Zone. I got a little bit. I tried it a couple of times, and I couldn't understand why. I felt like a lot of times we're just throwing away money. But someone said it's because, especially with Instagram, one of the mentors told me it's because they actually on purpose start, like, it's like they first give you a few, like, more followers, but then it drops really quickly, and they have that as an algorithm like that on purpose, apparently, so that it can help apparently sort of get you buying more, probably. But I didn't know that. So we originally started with Instagram.
Okay, and that didn't work out well.
No, I honestly found, actually, if I go next, next, Melanie, I have a few appendix slides here that probably just, that's our short list. So those are names that we've been, highlighted.
Next.
Yeah, next. I think I have some marketing stuff. Yeah. So just about me, I honestly, the most effective way, and I know there's only one of me, is to go and like find people myself. I find that that's really the most effective way usually. However, with that said, I am very much looking into like ways to do private label. We actually just did over, actually the sketches that you saw before were with a collaboration with Jimmy Choo. Like we had kind of pitched him as well, like making his, sketching out a design for him. I'm still waiting to hear back, but we actually submitted a portfolio to him. So that's just one idea of leverage our label as well.
Melissa, what's the interaction between the app and the sensors on the mask? I didn't quite get that.
Okay, so what happens is the resin right now changes color. So if it'll be able to tell if you have a temperature, but it changes color between 33 degrees to 45 degrees in that color zone. So the app will actually help. It has to be, that's why she's making sensors around the mask too. It's going to track the speed at which it changes color. So that will also help determine whether you have the temperature or not. Because right now the range at which the resin changes color is between that 33 to 45 degrees Celsius. So, and usually the fever is usually at 37 or 39 degrees Celsius. So it's actually measuring the speed. That's actually why we also need the data. I mean, sorry, the track it, because it'll give us an accurate, yay or nay. And you can think of it like
you're pointing your camera. Someone is pointing their camera at your mask. Is that how it's working?
Yeah.
How are you detecting the color change or the speed of the color change?
Yeah, so that's why she's putting in sensors into it right now. Like she's literally like playing with, like putting it together. She's a mechanical engineer, because I have the 3D printers, and I was playing around with the resin, and the resin, it does work really well. It's just, how do you have it accurate, right? So then we were thinking, we're like, okay, well, it's actually the speed at which it changes color, and it can be from purple to orange, and we were thinking about using, there's a 3-layer color, but one of them would be a deep freeze, which we were like, it might not applicable. But right now, this type of resin does exist. It's just not utilized for this type of purpose yet. I'm sure it will be, but we just thought about it because I just remembered that.
I think the question was, how does the information get transmitted from the mask to the internet? Is it through a smartphone?
Yes, sorry, yeah, it's through a smart and sensors. Like it'll be like a.
So there's sensors in the mask. They detect the change in the speed and the change, and then it in some kind of near field technology sends the data through the air into the ether and gets picked up by a smartphone.
A temperature. So think about the you know what? It's sort of the same why right now they're using color changing resin for training self-driving cars.
No, I understand I understand the color changing. What I don't understand is how you're measuring it, like how you're collecting the data.
Right.
Oh, it's the heat. She explained it to me as it's the heat transfer, right? And that's why we have to put sensors. Originally, I thought I could just.
But how do you get the information to the app?
Is it Bluetooth? Is it RFID? Like what?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be this. It's similar like the Amazon Go, I think is what she said. I was like, you know the little stickers.
RFID.
Yes. And she's programming it. I have to talk to her. Yeah. So this is what I meant. I'm not the tech background, but I can definitely get back to you guys on that. I just know that that's why she was putting in the sensors in order to have that. Because it's the heat, she says, and then it'll trigger something within a notification. But there is another team doing something like that right now.
Melissa, tell us about pricing. How did you reach the $70 mark? The imitation versions are $5. The fashion versions are whatever they are, jewel studded and so on. What's the magic sauce in the $70?
Oh, because my master, we're using I'm using really thick material. Like I actually just went out there and I bought a bunch of masks just to see what people are charging for $20. And the masks that I've created are a lot more significant. Like usually they'll be like $40 because people are charging $20 for a 1-layer mask, for example, right? And this is me just going on the market just to test it out. So I know my quality is better, but also comparing it to a wearable product, it's a lot of times they're about $49, $59, right? So you're getting, something that's needed right now too, right, in the market. Plus you're getting a technology and you're getting, I would say, a fashionable mask. So there's two components to that.
We have time for one more question. Anybody have a question? All right, well, I think that's it. Well done, Melissa. Congratulations, in spite of all the technical glitches.
Thank you so much. I really do apologize. Like that is so.
No worries. That happens, and that's part of adapting to this COVID environment. So don't worry about it. Let yourself out. For our audience, you're going to leave shortly too, but I wanted to remind you that we're going to do this all over again next Monday night, 7 o'clock, same login information. And also, put into your calendar that on June 29th at 7 p.m., we're going to do the finals. It's a different login, but we've provided to you, and we will certainly send you emails to those people who've logged into this with information about the finals. Melanie, I think we can let our audience go. There's only a couple people left, but I think it's time for them to go home. And it's time for the judges. So guys, complete your scorecards for Crippet, and then we'll fight it out.